Early one morning, the sun stretched golden rays across the sleepy Nigerian village of Umuoka, casting long shadows on the clay huts and scattering warm light through clusters of hibiscus flowers that lined the dusty paths. Villagers exchanged cheerful greetings, some heading to the marketplace with woven baskets, while others prepared food over open fires for breakfast. Chinedu, a tall and lean young man with a quiet spirit, wandered through the market, exchanging polite smiles with neighbors. Beneath his gentle, subdued manner, he carried a secret that weighed heavily on his heart. Chinedu's older brother, Obi, had recently returned to the village after several years in the city. Alongside him was his wife, Sara, a woman of remarkable warmth and gentle beauty. The family home stood at the end of a winding path, enclosed by a modest compound with dusty red earth bricks and a corrugated iron roof. As neighbors arrived to greet Obi and Sara, Chinedu lingered in the background, his gaze drifting to Sara more often than he intended. A pang of guilt twisted in his chest whenever he admired the grace with which she greeted the elders. He knew how wrong it was to harbor feelings for his brother's wife, yet the heart does not always heed commands of logic. That evening, the family shared a meal in a low-ceilinged dining room lit by lanterns. The aroma of jollof rice, egusi soup, and fried plantains filled the air. Obi, muscular and energetic, chatted excitedly about his experiences in the city, regaling everyone with stories of tall skyscrapers and bustling markets. Sara, seated near him, listened attentively but occasionally glanced across the table at Chinedu. Each time, he felt his breath catch in his throat. Though no words were exchanged, a fleeting tension hovered in the warm glow of the lantern light. Chinedu forced himself to focus on the meal, afraid that if he spoke too much, his true feelings might slip out. Later that night, unable to sleep, Chinedu ventured outside to the nearby riverbank, a tranquil spot where he often found solace. The moon sat high, casting silver ribbons across the gently flowing water. He had just stepped onto a flat rock by the river's edge when, to his surprise, Sara emerged from behind the reeds. She wore a simple wrapper tied around her waist, her headscarf removed so that her braided hair fell to her shoulders. They exchanged startled smiles, neither expecting the other. Silence grew between them, broken only by the chorus of crickets. After a few moments, Chinedu spoke in a trembling voice, haltingly confessing that he admired her kindness, her understanding, her willingness to treat him like more than just Obi's younger brother. Sara, though flattered, quickly reminded Chinedu that she was Obi's wife. She turned away, concerned that even this quiet conversation might spark misunderstanding. But secrets have a way of unveiling themselves in close-knit communities. The next morning, Sara brought Chinedu a small wooden bowl of food while Obi looked on from a distance. In any other circumstance, it would have been innocent, a kind gesture between in-laws. Instead, Obi noticed the shy gratitude in Chinedu's eyes and the gentle politeness in Sara's smile. Though it was a moment that lasted barely a breath, Obi found himself troubled. After placing the fruit aside, he cornered his younger brother and demanded to know if there was something going on between him and Sara. Chinedu vehemently denied it, stumbling over his words, his cheeks burning from a mix of guilt and embarrassment. As the day waned, tension escalated. Obi's suspicion flared into confrontation when he caught Chinedu hesitating outside Sara's door, intending to offer an apology. Their argument played out under the dying light of the sun in the center of the family compound. Obi's voice, usually so full of laughter, roared with anger and fear. Chinedu felt the weight of betrayal in his brother's tone, even though he had never physically acted on his feelings. Overhead, the sky bled into shades of orange and purple, reflecting the storm of emotions at ground level. News of the disagreement reached Mama Yuzo, a revered elder in the family. Though frail in appearance, she held the authority of generations in her voice. Summoning Obi, Sara, and Chinedu to the veranda, she spoke about the sanctity of marriage and the unbreakable thread of family ties. Her tone was not harsh, rather, it was a melodic but firm counsel that demanded honesty and compassion. She reminded them that all families face trials, but their unity, guided by respect and responsibility, must prevail above all else. Under her discerning gaze, Chinedu's shoulders sagged with remorse. Sara, too, lowered her eyes, mindful that her own heart must not waver in its devotion to Obi. That evening, Chinedu found Sara alone in the courtyard. He confessed that while his feelings for her were real, he valued Obi's happiness above any personal desire. He could not tear his family apart. Trembling, with tears threatening to spill, Chinedu apologized for the confusion and pain he had caused. Sara responded with quiet sincerity. She, too, had grown fond of Chinedu's gentle spirit but recognized how it threatened her marital vows. Their eyes shone with sadness, but there was also relief in acknowledging the boundary they must never cross. A breeze rustled through the hibiscus flowers, carrying away the unspoken words they could not allow themselves to share. The next morning, a hush blanketed the compound. Obi and Chinedu spoke in low tones by the entrance gate. Chinedu had decided to accept a job opportunity in the city, a chance at a fresh start. It was not an easy choice, but he believed distance might help soothe these forbidden feelings. Obi looked at Chinedu with damp eyes, torn between residual suspicion and love for his younger brother. Finally, he embraced him, whispering a hushed apology for doubting him so severely. Chinedu returned the embrace, relieved to feel that familiar bond mending, even if slowly. As Chinedu stepped onto the main road, the sun began its ascent over Umueka, illuminating rooftops and bathing the village in a soft, hopeful glow. From the doorway, Sara watched him go, her hands clasped over her heart. Obi stood beside her, resting a hand on her shoulder. Through shared smiles, they forged a silent promise to cherish each other without letting doubt cloud their love again. And though Chinedu walked away with a heavy heart, he felt a certain lightness, too. He carried with him the lesson that love, like the delicate petals of the hibiscus, must be nurtured with both responsibility and respect.